Well, it's Friday, April 25th, 2025, and we are here on Transition to New Terra podcast with Tyler Kiwala, who has just written a new book, Bleedthrough. And this is going to be the subject of our interview today. Tyler, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored that you invited me on, and I'm honored that you read my book and found it interesting enough to interview me about it. So thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. I'm more than interested. I feel like it's so new. I was really wondering how to approach talking about it this morning, and I finally figured out a way, I think. But before I do, let me just mention the cover art because you designed this cover, right?
Right.
Now, can you tell us what we're seeing here? Because I have my own theories about this, but please tell us what you were thinking.
Well, it's a representation of a lot of things. It's our multi-dimensional nature, right? So what you're looking at there is like overlapping like Earths, right? Like parallel worlds. And then the overlap is where the bleed through occurs, but it also represents a womb, which is like the birth of a universe, right? And and it's like it's kind of represents the masculine and feminine balance, but then you have those egg-shaped portals or worlds like bleeding through, just representing more overlaps between other realities and kind of how they all merge, and then they're within the larger circles, which is like worlds within worlds within worlds, and it's just supposed to represent the infinity of our multi-dimensional realities and represent where the bleed through occurs, the overlaps, and the divine masculine and feminine balance, all there with me, just staring at it all, wondering how it all works.
Yeah, you're in darkness.
Right.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
really well done, man. I'm so impressed with this cover art. I can't even tell you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've always been a fan of your graphics, but you really outdid yourself on this. And I see this as the time space portal, the larger circle there. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, it can be interpreted however you'd like. Really, I wanted it to portray what I just explained, but if anybody finds anything else in it, then that's amazing. And, it even shows a reflection, which is also interesting to me because it's like, again, a mirrored parallel reality.
Right. And Tales from Another Timeline is the subtitle. And one of your chapters is, let's see, actually, I think is it part two that talks about parallel realities? Is that the title of it?
Well, there's an interlude where I get into the time travel dimensions and parallel realities. And the
Right,
interlude. Yeah. So
right,
that's the preface to part two.
right. So that's incredible because you see, if a scientist is talking about this kind of thing, we kind of doze off. We're like, "Oh," because it's so, we don't feel the connection between us and the scientist, between us and the science. We're like, that scientist is out there in his ivory tower doing his work. Great. We want him to do his work and figure out reality. Well, we're going to be in our mundane life here. We don't really feel this connection. But see, with this book, because you've lived, you haven't just theorized about timelines, you're living alternate timelines, alternate times.
Right. It's actually, you would think it makes it easier to write about, but it's one of the hardest subjects to write about and make it relatable and digestible. Because I don't know, when I was writing this stuff, I was like, man, how do I word this? I really struggled through some of it just to get I didn't want people to get lost in it and just like overwhelmed. So I was like,
Right.
how can I reach them without signing it, without bringing too much of like the big vocabulary into it? I just wanted to make it relatable for the average person who's not looking to pick up that book to research, but they're gonna like be pleasantly surprised along the way when there's some corroborating research that can help them make sense of what they're reading at the same time. It's kind of like this dance that I was trying to perform the whole time and create this flow. And there was a lot that I wrote and deleted and just whatever, how the writing process goes. But Sometimes I felt like I was over explaining things, and then I was just like, no, this can be done in like one or two sentences.
Hmm.
And like, I just set the intention that there would be a download that comes with that sentence, that people would get the rest of the message. You know, it's all there hidden beneath the page.
I really like that. I really like that because I'm as a writer, I often find myself overwriting. So I watched you in real time as I was reading. I was like, oh, he's just collapsing this incredibly huge thing into one sentence, and we get it.
Right. That's exactly what I was trying to do. Yeah.
Nice.
I noticed I have to thank Sean David Morton in the Sands of Time books because I referenced them a lot, but also the way he wrote those. I found it very fascinating because he would, in some cases, the simplicity of his statement was an entire book in itself. And it was just kind of amazing the information I would receive. And then I would go back and like, what part of the page did I see that on? And I would like, oh, there was like one or two sentences about it. But the way I interpreted it, it was like this huge download. And I
Mhm.
was like, that's amazing. It's genius because they plant the seed and you can even put it in the form of a question or whatever, but at the same time, people understand it, what you're trying to relay. So I kind of modeled it after that. And,
Mhm.
it's always different. Sometimes I felt like I need to explain things a little more in depth, and then other times I'll just leave it up to interpretation.
Yeah. Well, just so people know, Sean David Morton wrote this incredible science fiction series called Sands of Time. But in the intro, I believe he says, even though it's science fiction, ostensibly, it's actually based on a real life testimonial by a fellow who gave Sean this incredible bunch of manuscripts and data and said, get this out to the public.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, very strategically released it as a science fiction series. And the covers themselves, I feel like a lot of people, like one of the complaints I've heard about the books is the covers were horrible. And they're not very appealing. They're kind of confusing, whatever, but I don't think they're horrible. I actually find them, I see what he's trying to do, but it's also, it looks very sci-fi, the covers do.
Mm,
So it's a great way to camouflage this real information and just it slips between the cracks and it gets out there into the collective and people like us pick it up. And then as soon as I read those books, I'm like, well, this information can't stay in between these covers, right? Can't stay in these pages. So I felt like I had a responsibility to get it out to the people. And we've talked about it a number of times. I reference it in my book, and my book, I would say, can even be an extension of those books if you really, it's the same subject matter, but just from a different perspective. And I feel like I think it's just amazing what Sean did, and I just want to kind of continue that legacy.
well, Sean's friend, he was on the inside of these agencies. And now you, in other timelines, seem to be on the inside in different capacities. You're a recruit in the Army, you're a recruit in the Navy, you are in the inner earth working for, I don't know if it was a named or an unnamed agency.
Right. Yeah, that one was unnamed, but Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not out here claiming to be this guy that is, military whistleblower, right? Because I'm not. In any capacity. I have not joined the military in this lifetime consciously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the book explains abductions and missing time and what that can look like in other timelines and parallel realities, and how there's a very real thing happening, and it's not just me. I just happened to get those memories back, and I was never looking for them. And that's how I knew like it was real because it's not like, I see people offer these memory courses and stuff, and people are really like trying to put this timeline together and put the puzzle pieces together, right? But I never had to do that, fortunately, because it was just all coming in naturally, and I was just writing it down, and sometimes just voice notes, and never once when I was documenting it did I actually think it was all going to make it into a book. It was more or less that it was just so profound and so real that how could I not document it? Because it wasn't, I dream about stuff all the time, but what I wrote about in those chapters were not dreams, and there were so many other things that corroborated and just helped it helped me really understand the bleed through. And whenever we're like on this ascension path, right, in this journey, we start reaching these higher frequencies where these other realities become perceivable. And for whatever reason, sometimes that bleed through occurs. And maybe that's because I'm specifically supposed to remember that and write about it so other people can, and that's my path. Maybe it happens for everybody for a different reason. Happens to everybody for a different reason. And maybe mine's different than, what yours would be. But I feel fortunate that those came through. I know it makes me sound crazy in some cases. I can't prove it, but um, I had so many real life things happen. I realized that these memories were directly impacting my life, and I can connect the dots. So that's what you see in the book when you read it. I kind of provide, okay, this is the memory, but this is also what happened that I can't ignore. There's something more here. There's no coincidence. We can throw coincidence out the window at this point. There's something going on here, and we need to explore it. So that's what the book is. It's exploring the potentiality of multiple timelines existing simultaneously, where we have an infinite version of ourselves living out these different lives and other realities with different careers and families, but you can tap into that and those memories come through and those timelines can collapse and then there's a whole other conversation that happens there. But
Yeah.
uh, it's I don't know, it's hard to write about, but I did.
Well, yeah, you just we plunge in with you to the experience. And then if we want, we can try to piece it all together. But I mean, it is tough to piece it all together if we have multiple lives and different timelines. Now, when you use the phrase other realities, I can assume that a lot of people are going to just tune out and go, look, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm trying to deal with my reality here, my 9 to 5. That's enough reality for me. Other realities, F this guy. I can assume that a lot of people are just going to go and scroll away and tune out. But we have to ask ourselves why there are multiple agencies comprising what we might call the dark side, for want of a better term, who are
Right.
working to try to suppress, actively to try to suppress our understanding of multiple realities, of multiple frequency ranges outside of our normal perception.
Right. That's why I provided the examples that I did from different whistleblowers and stuff like that and their testimonies, because I think that holds a lot of weight. And whether you believe it or not, it still plants the idea. It still plants the seed and it opens the reader's mind. Like the whole book isn't trying to prove anything. It's just putting these ideas out there, whether you believe it or not. Now you've heard the concept and then you can apply it where necessary, right? Apply accordingly. But I put the definitions of like, superposition and the collapse of a waveform and single position in the book as far as, it's the quantum mechanics that people that actually explain it. Quantum physics to explain like the many worlds theories of quantum mechanics explains multiple parallel realities. And the very definition of superposition is the existence of a particle, object, or world existing in more than one location simultaneously, right? So that is a scientific definition that a skeptic can grab onto. And I know like quantum physics and all that stuff is the quantum field is still not largely accepted, but it's becoming more largely accepted. And then, then I put the single position, the collapse of a waveform, which is the basically the collapse of an infinite amount of worlds and possibilities and probabilities down to a singular reality that's created by the observer. So that's the reality we're living in now. And I just wanted to put these scientific terms in there just to help people understand, okay, there is actually something that scientists have come up with to explain this. And this is what it looks like. And then I put the definition of what a reality is and what a dimension is. And it's just you have to kind of break it down like that before you can start talking about this stuff. But I did it in such a simple way. It's like one page and you're done. It's not like you're getting this huge lesson. It's all encoded within the page, like I said. It's interesting, I've done a couple interviews already,
Yeah.
and some people strictly wanted to focus on the astral realm and all that stuff in the book. And then now I really, really appreciate you asking me about the timelines perspective because to me, that's the whole meat of the book. That's the whole like it's interesting that I titled the book Tales from Another Timeline, but that that book isn't until part two. Like you don't get to the Tales from Another Timeline until part two of the book, but everything leading up to that is like a prerequisite, like to help the reader understand how I even came to this conclusion. So I can't just, start out of the gate with all this crazy stuff. I can, some people like that. They want to be like, ripped out of the reality on page one, but I feel like that still happens, but it's a more of a gradual incline, you know?
Yeah. Well, I just want to bring the viewer's attention back to the subtitle, Tales from Another Timeline. Now, this is important because it breaks the matrix. It's exactly what we need to break the matrix, this idea that there is another timeline. And then if there's another timeline, maybe there's another timeline. And how many timelines are there? And if there is what you call bleed through, where let's say in a dream or just walking down the street, you suddenly remember something from another timeline, and you're not sure, you don't know that it's from another timeline at that moment. You're just like, where did I get these memories?
Right.
Suddenly that helps us to sort of step out of the matrix a little bit. We're not out yet, because then we have to come to the place where, as we're climbing out slowly out of the matrix that has been constructed for us by nefarious people, we come to the place where we realize that there are really strong forces working to suppress our understanding that there are other timelines, that there are other lives that we have lived, and that these lives could be looked at as simultaneous lives, not just past lives.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the whole name of the game, right? Well, for one, if people read the book and then they start having memories or something like that, deja vu or something weird, they no longer have to write it off. They can start considering these other possibilities, that there's something more going on. And just that very thought alone can change everything. So that's where we're at, collectively, at least the people going through the awakening, right? And obviously, there's a very coordinated effort to suppress this information, and
Yeah.
in particular, the other timelines and dimensions, because a lot of these programs, these secret space programs, and all these realities I'm talking about, they happen in other dimensions too, in other timelines. So, and the way it works, the way people are brought into these programs from this reality, sometimes it's not like I was born on another timeline. I was abducted and brought to this other reality to carry out a mission for these organizations and these military groups in the private sector. It's kind of like Tomorrowland, if you ever seen that movie. They have this other dimension where they've like created this, they've developed out this advanced civilization and this society that people can go to, and they can have these amazing things and do all and use all these incredible technologies, and it's all existing parallel to this Earth. That movie's a lot, there's a lot of disclosure in it. So I feel like that's happening. And the reason they don't want us to know about it is because people, you, me, and maybe quite possibly everyone, are being utilized. Their consciousness is being abducted. Maybe they're physically abducted. They're being put into a clone body and they're living out these lives in these other timelines, all under nefarious purposes, right? All under you're just working for these agencies that you never even signed up for. And those agencies exist across multiple timelines because they understand this technology, and it's broken down beautifully in the book. And it would only make sense to me that they would want to hide that fact from us because, we're essentially assets for these programs. We are like we're an asset that creates a product for them, and it's all about money at the end of the day. But and well, not just money in this case. We're getting into DNA and all that stuff. But there's still something of value in it for them, that it's much easier for them to obtain that value if they can use us for free. And that's what
Right.
they're doing.
Yeah, Antonio Rodriguez talks about this. Oftentimes, he says that the slave labor is so valuable to them because they can get so much done for essentially for free. I mean, they have to put some work into training each new recruit that they abduct into their programs, but under false pretenses into their programs. But also, DNA is, and many researchers have said this, the coin of the realm. So,
Hmm.
and our DNA seems to be quite unique because we have somewhere between 22 and 24 different advanced races genetics within us. They made us to look like them, to be like them. They upgraded us from this natural hominid. It seems to be the general story. It is in their image that they created us. And of course, you'd want to help a being that was somewhat like you, but primitive, to upgrade and have more potential.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Our DNA is highly sought after for a number of reasons. For one, I think our resilience actually impresses some of the higher dimensional beings out there that are looking in. In some cases, like, we're poisoned on all fronts, and that's verifiable. Our food, our water, our air, our clothing. I mean, every product we use, the entire planet has been, engineered to work against us and to, shorten our lifespan and make us sick, and so they can, make money, profit off of us. That's been proven. I
Mm.
mean, we literally have evidence for that for days.
Yeah.
So the fact that humanity is still here and we're literally walking around and finding ways to thrive in such a poisoned environment. It's it's perplexing to the higher dimensional beings that we can even do that. How are we still standing? How are we walking out the front door? This guy should be crippled right now. Yeah, he still gets up and does it every day. Like, where is this resilience coming from? What's in their DNA? But we've adapted and overcome along the way. Like they think that they're poisoning us, but really it's all going to end up, backfiring in the long run. And they're finding that out now, and that's what we're dealing with on this planet as, everyone's coming back online and the frequencies are changing. These dark groups are no longer frequency specific to where we're going, and they're quite literally going to start phasing out of existence as we move forward. Now, there might be another timeline that stays there where the transhumanism agenda really like takes hold and people like sign up for that. And that might be just a lower timeline that exists simultaneously to this ascension timeline. And maybe it's not actually going to be this planetary ascension. It's just going to be the reality that you've focused on and created for yourself because now you understand how manifestation works. And you no longer have to, be complicit in their agendas because you're aware of it. And you can just navigate your life in a whole new way and choose the higher timeline every day and stop making decisions that are actually going to hold you back and make decisions that are actually going to propel you forward.
Well, there's an interesting paradox because, on the one hand, they're literally stealing our DNA physically, abducting us and taking our DNA. They're taking our DNA through on the first day of birth. They're taking our blood from the cord blood. They're cloning us, cloning our genetic material into other humans. They're using our DNA for many purposes. So it's extremely valuable to them. But on the other hand, they're trying to kill us.
Yeah, they don't, I mean, they don't want us dead, wiped out entirely, right? We've talked about this many times. Like they still need us because they feed off of us. But
Right.
they want us dumbed down and sick so we can never like become our true potential, right? And that's kind of the whole game. And if
Right.
they can replace intuition with a chip in your head or whatever it is they're trying to do, they're cutting you off from source. So you're never going to remember that your divine nature, right? And you're never going to reconnect with that organic ascension timeline, which I found really interesting. We just interviewed this guy, Luke Cohen, and we were talking about the multi-dimensional reality of our reality. And he explained the future being ancient. He's like moving back towards our ancient future because everything's existing simultaneously. Those ancient times and practices and cultures and that knowledge, it all exists in the future, but it's ancient. We're just going to reconnect with that, if you're on that organic ascension timeline. Now, if you're going to try to, go the transhumanism route, then it's going to look completely different for you. And that's where you see all these people, these doomers and these black pillars and these preppers and everybody who's living in fear. They're just creating more of that for themselves. And that's the timeline they're choosing because they refuse to see the light at the end of the tunnel because it's a trauma response. We've been lied to and manipulated for so long. The fact that something good actually happening to the planet, that it's unperceivable to some people because they just think it's always going to be this perpetual, we're stuck in the hamster wheel, right? But that's not the case anymore. And people are finding their way out and other people are screaming and yelling at them because they misery loves company.
Yeah.
Like it's very interesting to watch, especially like people, researchers like David Icke, who really paved the way for people. And now the fact that good things are happening and people are waking up, he he's been so programmed to only cover the darkness that he can't see the light. And he has to fit everything that's happening on this world, even if it appears to be good, he has to fit it into his dark box. And it's interesting to watch because it's like, come on, man, you literally paved the way for these people. You were a trailblazer. And now these people are waking up and you're belittling them, saying them that they're stupid for falling for this false light. What if it's not false light this time? What if something's different? It's very, very possible. And people are tapping into that. It's not just a small group of people. If you're really honest with yourself and you throw all that programming and all the surface level distractions aside, you're going to come to the conclusion that there's a very heart-centered reality existing that you can be a part of if you choose to be. And you don't have to sit there and point fingers all day long because it's just going to keep you trapped and you're going to perpetuate your own demise. And you're literally, like I said in the book, you're literally gonna uh, be trying to, I forgot how I worded it now, so I'm not even gonna say it. But basically, you're gonna be threatened. Your life would be threatened by the very life that was stolen from you,
Hmm.
you know? And then you don't even realize that you're actually trying to be saved, or they're trying to save you.
This is really interesting because you talked about a heart-centered reality. And this book, it's exactly that. It's promoting a heart-centered reality in a very specific way because it's not just your testimonials of your experiences, because a lot of SSP insiders have given us books that are testimonies of their experiences, and that's fantastic. But it's not just that. You also encourage us, the reader, throughout the book. You give us advice on how to negotiate or navigate, as you say, the matrix, and you keep coming back to the heart. It's always about the
Right.
heart. And it seems that the controllers, the dark controllers, whoever you want to call them, whatever names you want to call them by, they are after the heart. They're after love and they're after the heart.
Yeah, everything's an attack on the heart, always. I mean, it only makes sense if you're a dark force trying to manipulate us, manipulate humanity. But in the intro itself, yeah, I give the tools. I say, I want you to take this as an opportunity to drop into your heart and pay attention to how this information makes you feel. Like get out of your mind and like I basically I kind of lay out the steps, the protocol, like when you're reading the book, how to pay attention to your body and notice the subtleties in your reactions and how it makes you feel. And then you can use that as to determine whether or not you feel this information is true or not. Because by no means am I claiming that everything I've shared in that book is the absolute truth. I say as much in there. But I want people like it's right there in the intro before you start reading, like pay attention to your body. Get out of your mind. Let's feel your body, feel your heart, your gut. What is it telling you when you're reading this information?
Yeah.
And that's, that was the whole idea. Like I want people to understand themselves better by the time they're at the end of the book.
Because we are a very sophisticated resonator that, and if we pay attention to our own resonance with any person we meet, any information we encounter, any situation we're in, if we simply pay attention to the sophisticated resonator that we are by nature intrinsically, then we can navigate better through life.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point is to
Yeah.
figure out a way to navigate this freak show.
Well, I'm gonna quote. I'm gonna read you a quote, and you tell me if you know who said it. Even when you thought you've already gone back to the drawing board, there's another drawing board you've got to go find because there's just so much. We have to really start rethinking existence and why are we here and how we came to be.
Didn't I say that in an interview one time?
You did. It's you
Yeah.
talk. You were talking to Katie Weiss.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. That was our interview. That was on our channel, right?
Is that
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like every time you think you figured it out. There's another layer, and you just have to have the humility to self-correct and like, okay, like I just don't know actually. And the further along I get on this path, I realize I don't actually know. And it's really funny to me when I think about the whole awakening in a nutshell, like zoomed out and looking down on it, right?
Yeah.
Looking in on it from the outside. It's a whole bunch of people that think they know what they're talking about. They have no idea what they're talking about. That's the awakening. That's disclosure. But it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. It's beautiful because everyone's figuring it out and they're having those conversations, including myself. I'm throwing myself in that mix. Like I think I know what I'm talking about right now and in this book. But at the end of the day, like we just don't. We're so clueless to what we don't know what we don't know. And to be in a position that you could even think that you know the mechanics of the universe and the understand reality in such a way as a 3D human, I think is this it's silly. So when I see people like defending their ideals and beliefs, I can see their programming. They're not ready to let go of something, and they're threatened by whatever information's coming in that, obviously they've attached their identity to something, so some belief, and that identity is being threatened, and that's why people get triggered. It's not really about the information. It's like, no, this is who I am. And it's like, no, that's if your belief system requires you to attach your identity to it, then it's very much just a belief that you've identified with, and it may not be actually the truth.
Really good point. Now you've got so many different chapters in your life, things that come out of left field, and you're sort of this innocent bystander who's wondering what the heck is going on. Most of the time you're like, wait, why am I here? Who are you? And everyone else knows what's going on.
Right.
Everyone else has an agenda. You have no agenda at all. You're just like, what's going on? Who are you? What am I doing here? So it's so interesting to see this drama play out where you're like the center of attention. Now, I have a theory that I came up with this morning that calmed me down because I was really nervous. As I mentioned to you earlier before this interview, I said I was nervous because I didn't have a way in to ask you questions. I wasn't sure what my angle is going to be, but with the help of Cacao, I think I figured out a way in. So tell me what you think about this. All right.
Hmm.
What if this timeline, your life in this timeline, is the root timeline, the original life? And we can't say the first life because all timelines are accessible now. They're all happening in some sense simultaneously. But let's say the original root life. The dark forces see you in other timelines. The dark side are recruiting you into the US Army, into the Navy, into various special forces projects where you're learning special skills and you're getting a glimpse of the true agenda of the dark side. But you're going in some of these timelines, you're going against them. You're rebelling against their agenda. In
Right.
some cases, you're willing to give up your life, and you do give up your life in some of these cases for the good because you see that they're trying to kill humanity. They're trying to depopulate the earth, and you're willing to go against these incredibly sophisticated dark forces. So they look at your timelines. They can view all these timelines. The dark forces have the ability to do that. So do we. Some factions of the good side have that ability too. But they look at all these lives that you're leading, and they go, okay, he's a pain in the ass in this timeline. Oh, in this timeline, he's also a pain in the ass. Oh, in this
Right.
timeline, he's destroying our property, and it's going to really, really mess us up. And so
Right.
then they go, okay, let's go to the root timeline. Let's go to, you know, Earth in what we would call the natural world that we know of here in the
Right.
3D. Let's weaken him. Let's attack him so that because he's weak in this timeline, they will weaken his will in the other timelines. What do you think about that?
I think it's a beautiful analysis. I think that's absolutely entirely possible. I think that I love that you're even thinking along those lines, for one, because it shows the expansion. It's a perfect example of the expansion. But I kind of said it in the book. Like it's interesting that there's all these, dark timelines in these groups and all these things that I'm kind of being used against my will, and I just find myself in these situations. But I realized like in some level, like we agreed to walk side by side with the darkness to like feel their pain and understand it, like understand the mindset of where they're coming from. And then, and by standing there and like being one of them, it's an opportunity to insert love into the program, right? And as subtle as it may seem, I think that's what we're all doing. Like when we even come to Earth, like just coming to Earth in general, and like it's a very dense place. But we come online and we can insert love into the program and it just scrambles the frequencies. And they don't know how to handle it, which is exactly what's happening right now. That's why everything's so chaotic.
That's brilliant that love scrambles the program. That's that's awesome. One of your chapters is very recent. You went to Missouri to give a talk on the history of the SSP, the Secret Space Program.
Right.
And you did that in October 2024 at the behest of Margie Kay, and everyone should go check out Margie Kay, Kay. And it seems that they tried to kill you.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's what happened. It sounds silly to say and like, it reminds me of the Seinfeld episode when Jerry thinks that FedEx is delivering a bomb to his apartment and George is like he's like, "You think you're bombable?" He's like, "The ego. Come on." And like, so I always like look at that whenever I see people thinking, oh, they tried to kill me. Like, what kind of like egoic thought is that, right? To
Yeah,
think that you're important enough to be bombed
yeah,
or
yeah,
killed.
yeah, yeah.
So I didn't want to jump to that conclusion, but after you read a chapter, you understand like there's actually something going on there, but it's not a conclusion you can jump to or you can reach that conclusion from a 3D mindset, right? You have to entertain the multi-dimensional reality and these other timelines and this cross-timeline interference is what I call it. That they can, affect you once something that happens on this timeline, it spreads out. It translates to all timelines, right? There was a very real attempt in some capacity in one life or another to, remove me from the playing field. And it they got close, but it didn't work. And, obviously it can be explained away as just, oh, that no one was trying to kill you. It was just a coincidence that you got poisoned from a gummy, right? And or if you put it in the context of what was happening in my life and everything that I'm involved in and what I'm even here doing with the podcast and everything, I would say that it's not out of the realm of possibility that somebody was trying to silence me.
Right.
And we hear this time and time again with all these whistleblowers and researchers. Like Carrie Cassidy is a good example because she was never a whistleblower. She was doing what I'm doing, and she's had many attempts on her life. Just bringing this information and these people forward, like being that avenue for the truth to get out.
Right.
And that's all I was trying to do. And the fact that it happened, there's probably a much deeper reason for it than just, oh, they don't want him to give this presentation, right? Because that certainly couldn't be just the only reason that happened. And, I can tell that whole story. It's very traumatic for me to relive, and even writing it was difficult. So, um, I was basically given a gummy that I thought was I had an allergic reaction to, but it turned out to act more of as a poison, and my whole body shut down, and my throat closed up, and I went into anaphylactic shock and had to be saved with an EpiPen and brought to the hospital where I experienced a military abduction, and I write about it, and nothing made sense about it, and it still doesn't make sense, but it makes perfect sense if you entertain all these concepts that are discussed in my book.
And A Dance with Death is the title.
That was Emma DiMartino who edited the book. She came up with the title for that chapter. I have to give her credit because I was just going to call it Fort Leonard Wood, and it was kind of it just didn't encapsulate, the experience. So
Right, right. I was wondering this morning whether if they did kill you in one timeline, would that affect you'd still be alive in the other timelines, obviously, right?
yeah, yeah, obviously because we're infinite souls, right?
Right.
And the way it was described when I had my session with Leah Ray after the fact, and she said that. she found it very interesting because when she looked into it, she saw absolutely like an assassination attempt. Somebody was trying to execute me. It's all I put the session notes in the book, so the reader can just decipher that how they'd like. But the one thing she said that was very interesting, she saw me like as a 10-year-old boy on another timeline wreck my bike at the same exact moment that I got poisoned in this timeline. And she's like, "Oh, that's interesting." And they kind of showed her an example how it just permeates through all timelines where you exist. Whenever something of significance happens like that, about like almost dying or committing suicide, like you might commit suicide and another version of you might get in a car wreck
Mm.
at the same time, and they might not die, but they'll come close to it, right? And it's because of something, a decision you made or something that happened to you on another timeline. So in this case, you used the example of me crashing my bike as a kid and getting very badly injured and surviving. And then she gave me a couple other examples too, but it's something I never didn't really think about until she brought that to my attention.
Well, there's another chapter, Dress Blues. Now, is that the one where April is trying to warn
Yes.
you?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. And what's interesting about that too is I had no idea actually until after the fact talking with Daryl James that I guess his aide whenever he was taken to the moon.
Hmm.
His nurse or cadet aide or whatever you want to call him, assistant, was named April as well. And I just, I have no idea if it's the same person, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like I experienced encountered a girl in one of my memories that kind of played the same role, and her name
Right.
was April.
And she knew you before, from before. So it's like you kind of wonder, does she know you from another timeline, or is it from that timeline?
I got the impression that she worked there, right?
Yeah.
She was obviously working there as an
Yeah.
assistant, as a cadet assistant, and I had been through there a few times. Like me, I had already been through and like ran through the ringer and spit back out, and then I'm there again th with no memory of what happened the first time. And she was there to warn me. She was like, "You don't have to do this. You don't know what they're going to do to you. That you've already done this. You just don't remember." And then that's why they pulled me aside and then like interrogated me kind of, and they wanted to know like what I remembered. And I had this weird dream. It was it's a whole very confusing thing that I did my very best to explain. But
Yeah.
um, it, yeah, absolutely. I had been there before. I'd done it. I had no memory of it. She was trying to stop me, saying like you had a choice, and I could literally see like the desperation in her eyes. Like she was like, "Don't do this. You don't have to do this." I'm like, "I don't have a choice, do I?" And she's like, "Yes, you've done this before. You just don't remember." And but the way it's sold, you feel like it's like your first day of school, you're a new recruit, they give you these uniforms, you're assigned these groups, and you think you're just signed up for like something very cool. Like, you know what I mean? They sell it. It's very glamorous and sexy. That's how they sell it. And then actually get in and it's slave labor and torture and whatever. You're used in whatever capacity they need you. So you might not be a slave because you might be working with the high ranking generals and stuff because of whatever role you're needed for. But um, it can look like anything, just like Earth, you know?
Well, you got to wonder what you did that required them to memory wipe you to send you back to start you again in the program. It's like, well, what happened?
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, and you were dropped into this memory or this moment again, sort of like in the mid, just in the middle of it, and you're like, what am I doing here? Who are these people in these orange uniforms? And.
Right. And you know what's interesting too is I didn't include this in the book, and maybe it would have been worth writing about, but most all my memories came back to me whenever I'm not staying at home, like on vacations or trips. And it makes me think that there's some sort of like frequency net around St. Louis or my house that stops me from remembering. Because a lot of times I'll go to the Ozarks and like three of those chapters came from like when I go to the Lake Ozarks, we have a condo down there. And the
Mm.
room like I sleep in there is so dark and quiet, and it's like you just escape from reality. And like I have these crazy memories come back, and like this bleed through happens, and like I don't even know, like I was gone, I come back, and it like all happens there. And then one of my trips to Arkansas that happened, and like so I'm traveling and getting all these memories back when I travel, and I come back home. There's something in place that stops me from remembering, which is one of the big reasons I want to leave St. Louis because I understand like I'm not going to grow here. Like I've traveled enough to know that like my expansion is going to occur elsewhere. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm on my way out the door here, but that chapter served me, obviously. St. Louis is a darker place than a lot of people realize. Like the people are great, it's beautiful, there's a lot of things to do, but there, the dark has their grip here. And if you know how to identify it, it's very apparent. And if you don't know, then you're going to think that everything's just Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, which is what all the sleepers think. They don't understand the raging darkness that exists below the surface, that exists beneath society. They just think it's all Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. So if you're looking at it through that lens, then you're not going to see the darkness. But once you see the darkness, you can't unsee it. And there is a very manipulative dark frequency net over this area, and it comes and goes. It comes in waves. Sometimes it's a little turned up a little more than other times, but
Mhm.
uh, I understand that it's not just St. Louis. It's a lot of cities.
Right, right,
And I'm
right,
not even in the city, but I'm close enough. So it's just one of those things you have to start considering whenever you're like thinking about relocating or just where you live in general. Like, how is it actually like, is it serving you to stay there?
right, right. Why don't you tell us about your conference coming up?
Yeah, it's just a Journey to Truth conference. It's our fourth year. Rebels of Disclosure, we decided to call it because we're all rebels of disclosure, right?
You're a
Um,
rebel.
Yeah, so it's just we take all of our favorite presenters and give them an opportunity to speak on stage, and we all meet each other in person, Star Family, Soul Family. We do bonfires, sky watches, go squatching, go to the Cahokia Mounds. It's a whole thing. So it's our fourth year and our last year in Grafton. It's a beautiful location. It's in Grafton, Illinois, May 12th through the 15th. And I know Illinois kind of turns people off, but you've been there. That town doesn't feel like it even belongs in Illinois. It's like this little hidden gem, right?
Right.
So, and it's very, very beautiful there, and we can't wait. It's going to be a great turnout again this year, and next year we're moving to Hawaii. But if you're interested to join this year, you can grab a ticket at journeytotruth.online. It's not too late.
Yeah, Perry Marquette Lodge is the place where you hold it, and this is the fourth year you said, and it's really really beautiful there. I mean, it doesn't feel like a conference center. It feels like a big sort of woodsman's lodge in the middle of the forest. It's fantastic.
Right, right, exactly.
As we wind up this interview, because you have so much going on with this conference and you've got to get things done, and I really appreciate your time today, Tyler. So chapter 11 is where the things get crazy. Um, Boeing facility, you were taken, you're abducted, what to a facility, and later you think maybe I was taken to another timeline.
Right. Yeah, so it was the whole memory was, I woke up in bed completely disoriented and I had the full recall. Like it was there. I remembered what happened to me. It was like it's like how people are abducted and they don't know. I remembered it. I woke up and I was like, "Oh shit, like I was there last night." And I was in this I remember waking up in the back of this SUV and brought to these buildings and I don't know how I knew. Yeah, but I was in Illinois. I just could tell I knew somehow. And I even feel like I recognized the place. Like maybe I had even been there before. I just didn't remember. But um, and I was brought into the basement of this facility, and there was like this te they were like it was like a test. Basically, they were seeing how I responded to this weird AI spider thing. And it seemed like they had brought many people in there before just to see how they responded to it because the impression I got was this thing had been created a lot of issue for them, and they had been trying to figure out ways to defeat it. Yeah, I kind of drew what I remembered. It's not showing up that great, but um, yeah. So anyway, it was this whole thing, but. And the whole story is in the book, and it sounds kind of crazy, but read it and you decide for yourself. And woke up from that and I was like, that memory was so real. I explained what I did afterwards, and I ended up meeting somebody who was talking about the Boeing facility, and it triggered. I'm like, Boeing, that's it. So I looked it up online, looking up Boeing facilities in Illinois, and I found the building. So I'm like, that's it. Like, oh, I started getting like chills, and it was like only 42 minutes away from my house or whatever, and it was like just basically down the road. And so I drove out there and I like pulled in a parking lot. I'm like, this is exactly what I saw, even down to some of the specific details, except there was one thing that was different. In my memory, the parking lot extended between the buildings, and it was all blocked off and fenced off, and there was like a big unit, like a machine there, and you clearly couldn't walk between the buildings. And it didn't make sense to me until I started learning about these, other reality. Like it was the thought, it was one of the Carrie Cassidy's interviews that put me on the path of believing that these programs and stuff exist in another dimension. It's not necessarily in this dimension. Like in another dimension, a parallel Earth, it could look nearly identical, but there'll be a tree over here instead of over here. Something's just slightly out of place, and that's common. That's a constant among these testimonies of
Mhm.
people experiencing a parallel Earth, right? It's like, oh, it was the same house but a different family. So this is very well could have been the case that it was the same buildings, but there was a parking lot that extended between the buildings in the timeline I was brought to, and in this timeline, it's just a little slightly different. There's a fence there. So it got me thinking because also like what occurred during that memory couldn't like quite literally have happened to me. Like I found myself levitating, and I was actually able to levitate, and it's something I can do a lot of times in these dreams that I have, right? But in this case, it was like they were testing my abilities to see if I could levitate, whatever. So I'm like, okay, I can't levitate in this timeline, right? Like I can't do that. The buildings were slightly different. So like, what if this just happened in another dimension entirely, where the frequencies are different? But things were close enough. Same location, just you're just on this frequency instead of this one. And that's kind of the conclusion I came to about a number of my experiences. It's like, oh, we're not going there in this physical reality. It's happening in a physical reality, but it's a parallel reality. It's another timeline with a different radio station.
Well, you seem to give us enough detail detailed accounts of experiences with fourth dimension entities that are trying to attack you that show that they unwittingly taught you how to use the ether to combat them.
Exactly, right. So, like, after years of figuring out how to break free from the paralysis, the frequency that AI spider thing, whatever, was emitting, it
Yeah,
was the same exact frequency that they pump into my room whenever they paralyze me. And that's when I realized that it's actually a frequency that's paralyzing me. I'm like, oh, it's a frequency. And they probably can harness that frequency and put it in a tool, right? And then they just push a button and it emits the frequency and then it paralyzes me. Whatever. It can look like anything. We can just use our imagination. But
yeah.
that's when I was like, oh, it's a frequency. That's how they paralyzed me. But I was such a familiar frequency. At first, when I was first paralyzed, I couldn't even break free. Like I thought I was dying. And you figure out a way to fight it and overcome it. And you like because we have the light within us to overwrite that frequency. And I just did that whenever that thing came out, and everyone in the room went to their knees. They got basically sucked to the floor like a magnet was pulling them down. And I felt it too, but I was able to resist it. And not only resist it, I was able to use it against it. It helped me feel the magnetic field of the room to actually like tap and lean into that ether and like trust that I could um, levitate, right? And it's a really hard thing to explain. But since I had experience with that frequency here in this life,
Yeah.
I understood exactly what it was and I knew what it took to overcome it. And that's what I did. And I think that's what they were looking for, somebody that could do that. And and I don't know why it all happened, but it did.
Well, you seem to have learned over time in this life that levitation was the key to fighting these entities. And so in that scenario where whether it was another reality or this reality, another timeline or this timeline, you used that knowledge and you said, okay, I'm going to trust that I can levitate. I'm going to trust the ether to be my pillow. And you lean back and let the ether sort of take you up. And then you were able to fight this AI entity because you trusted the ether.
Exactly. Yeah. So anytime, like in all my levitation experiences in my dreams, right? Um, I figured it out because I play with it and I'm lucid dreaming and I figure out how to do it. And like I've fallen over before because as soon as fear takes over, like you have to literally do a trust fall and just trust that you're not going to fall. And like your conscious mind 10 times out of 10 here is going to let you fall because you don't trust in the ether. You don't believe we can't see it, right? Even
Right.
if you tell yourself, no, I'm just gonna like lean into this and I'm gonna start levitating. I've tried it, believe me. Like I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna start levitating. Your conscious mind takes over and you go into survival mode because
Yeah.
you want to protect yourself. You don't want to fall on the hard ground, right?
Yeah.
And in order to actually let go of that fear, and it's something I've only been able to achieve in a dream state.
Mhm.
And because in a dream state, nothing feels real anyway. Your mind already knows, oh, well, my physical body's in bed. This is just
Mhm.
an astral
Mhm.
body or whatever you think it is, but maybe it's not. And that's how I was able to figure that out. And I was like, oh, like there's a magnetic field and there's like these like filaments that we can't even see. Spiders can see it. Spiders can see wind because wind has colors, and that's how they even cast their webs from one tree to the other. It's a very similar thing. You can feel into it, and then you can start to perceive it, and you know where that magnetic field is at all times. And like maybe sometimes you wouldn't be able to lean into it because the conditions aren't right, but sometimes you can.
Mhm.
And it's just really interesting I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just try to figure it out, you know?
It's deep stuff, man. Occasionally, just so you know, I have dreams where I fly, and I'm not flying like like this. I'm just floating really slowly, about 20 feet above the ground. And in the
Sure.
dream, I know that this is unusual. Other people don't really notice me, but like they don't think it's unusual necessarily until I come down and they go, "Oh, what were you doing?" But the only way I can keep flying is belief. If I believe 100% that I can fly, I'm able to. But as soon as I start to doubt myself, I drift to the ground and I can't.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the limitations of our beliefs that actually create the reality that we perceive. You know, we collectively agree on these laws of physics that make it real for us. So it's not just your belief, it's the collective too. Like you get caught in that airwave of the collective and you just can't levitate. So you have to really create your own bubble that separates you from this reality, and then you can do amazing things.
Do you feel when you're levitating with the ether, is it a joyful experience?
Yeah, most of the time it's amazing, you know, and a lot of times I find myself like showing off for people that I can do it and stuff, and I've if what I'm experiencing in these dreams when I levitate is real, like most people are quite literally shocked that a person is levitating next to them. And I try to explain to them how I do it. I mean, this happens so many times I've lost count, you know. And it's just one of these things like I guess my higher self I like to have fun doing whenever I'm out of my body, and you know, whenever I'm sleeping here.
Interesting, interesting. Well, the dark forces, the people representing the dark forces were circled around you for this experiment with this AI thing with the frequency, they were shocked that you could do it. But the reason they were testing you was because they want to use you to fight similar AI entities in another timeline, and they immediately sent you there. And because you were there, you became their asset.
Right, exactly. So I went in to take care of one of these things that had gotten loose. But I also think that the whole thing could have been like a training module simulation too. Either way, I was sent into an abandoned mall where one of
Yep.
these things was loose, and they had sent a team in to go basically take care of it. And the team wasn't having any luck at all. They just had basic like standard guns, and like their weapons weren't working against it. And it was just a suicide mission, and they were all in there. basically just they were like hiding behind rubble, like blind firing at this thing. But it was like a T-Rex in a sense, like its vision was based on movement, so everyone was being as still as possible,
Um,
and it would like clearly waiting like to detect any form of movement at all, and then it could like know where it came from. So I went in and I saw it, and I knew what I had to do right off the bat because I just did it back at the facility. And then after I took care of it, after I, dissolved this thing and blasted it away with light, then that's when the memory ended. I don't know. There was nothing after that.
and that was the love frequency that generated the light that you
Yeah, it
used.
was very much like a Kamehameha in Dragon Ball Z, like how, or like Goku. What is the other attack he does? Anyway, where he like literally absorbs the light from like the ether itself and the sun and all the animals. They
Mm.
like lend him their light and they collectively like he's able to do this bomb. I forget what they call it. Oh my God. Anyway, it was like that. It's like you just gather all of the light that you can and like it was like it would like emanate in my fingertips and this ball would appear and it literally looks so silly like something from a movie and you just redirect that light and it just anything in its path that isn't of a frequency match is just obliterated.
Well, I think the reason we have all these movies is because we remember that we can do this on a subconscious level. We know we can do all these things. And the dark side is also doing all their pre-programming and their disclosure. So all these things are ultimately real. Dragons, all the stuff that we think are just fairy tales, it's all real. Tyler Kiwala's book is out. Get your hands on a copy. Bleed Through Tales from Another Timeline. Tyler Kiwala, thank you, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm really happy that you got this book done amidst all the other incredible things you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I love the fact that you're holding my book up the whole time while you're interviewing me. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed it. Yeah, yeah, anybody who's interested, you can grab it on Amazon and there's a Kindle version and I will be working on an audiobook, but not yet. And
Hmm.
if you enjoy the book, all I can ask of you is to leave a review because that helps the algorithms tremendously. So that would be greatly appreciated. And if you feel compelled to join us at the conference, journeytotruth.online has all that information. And we can grab tickets and come hang out with us. It's right around the corner, May 12th. And yeah, I think that's it.
And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And for those who want to watch Secret Space Program testimonials of many, many people who have a lot to lose, who have reputations to lose, salaries to lose, and lots of things to lose, and nothing really to gain by telling these testimonials to us, go to Journey to Truth on Rumble and go to Journey to Truth on YouTube.
Mhm.
Um, your YouTube channel was disappeared a couple years ago, but
Mhm.
by the powers that be at YouTube one day. But you're slowly rebuilding. Rumble has, I think, all of your videos, all of your interviews, so people can find you there. And you also have a Patreon, J2T, the number two, J2T on Patreon.
Yep, yeah. And everything that you just named is on our website too. So just journeytotruth.online, you can find all of it there. But yeah, absolutely. YouTube wiped us out when we were about at 50,000 subscribers, which was a milestone for us, and we lost some of the videos entirely, a couple of them, unfortunately, but we have most of our library and it's all been backed up in other places. If you want the full library, you can go to the audio podcast. It's all there. But Rumble has everything from a certain point on, but Rumble also has more because it has all the episodes that were censored off of YouTube that still can't go on YouTube. YouTube is a very minimal library at this point of the episodes that we think won't get flagged, and it's our fifth channel. It's not even, we're using like somebody else's name and email address to even have the channel up because
Uh,
we just can't do it anymore. So,
right. If you have a message for the folks out there, as far as where humanity should put our focus as we transition from the Matrix to a new world, what would you say?
focus on being present as possible and stop looking at the news, stop scrolling on Twitter or X or whatever. Like I feel like it's when we take in all this external information because that's the world that they're trying to create. And we even feed into it at all, whether we're researching or not. It's assisting with those frequencies. It's assisting in that agenda. So
Yeah.
just bring it inward and be present and go outside and remember not to take everything so seriously. Remember to have fun, most importantly. And when I say be present, I mean observe your surroundings quite literally. Go outside and look at a leaf. Look, observe an insect, an animal. You'll get so lost in the beauty of it that you forget about all the darkness, right? And it helps you recalibrate and recenter yourself. So that's what I would recommend because that's what I have to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't make it.
Yeah, nature is our salvation in this 3D world for sure. And this tree is in my driveway, and it's the emblem of the podcast because I feel like the trees have the secret to life. They know what's happening more than we do. So we're sort of
All right.
lost and wandering around. The trees are like, no, I just grow and be present and don't worry about all the things that you're talking about, the externals. So go get Tyler's book and have a beautiful present day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This was great.